Terrance take his shirt off.
Everybody sings their own parts. The only minor exception is Darren Bousman is one of the voices, I think, for one of our... Yeah, that's right. But all the major players, they all sing their own parts.
And Paul is not. He was sick. He didn't feel well. And he's still in the jury, so I apologize, guys, about
He wanted to be here.
He did.
He needs medicine.
It's kind of leading into
Sure.
But it's leading into that. How crazy was like the vocal training for this?
Alexa, Ogre.
Training?
We didn't really have time to train. We literally kind of were thrown into recording right away because there wasn't a budget for training. So we had to come as prepared as possible. And I literally flew in from New York working on another project.
Hairspray!
I was doing that in New York. And literally my last show, I had to pack and fly out. And as soon as I landed in Los Angeles, I was driven to the recording studio to go and record. So there really was no break. And what was great was I was able to talk to Darren and Terrance, and we were able to go over the project and really decide, because if you look at, like, let's say 17, I'm jumping around on a bed and, I'm kind of running all over the room. When you're recording that, you can't have a perfectly still voice, or else it just wouldn't be believable. The audience wouldn't be able to connect with you. So we had to think, okay, maybe at this point in the movie, I can be jumping up and down on the bed, or I can be running through the room. So I'll have to make my voice hit something and hit a note a little harder than the previous note. So it's really kind of it's hard. We had to really try to think everything out before.
Yeah, you had to basically. What I think was fucked up about this movie versus other movies is that everything was done 2 months before we got on set. So we had no idea what the sets were going to look like, or the costumes or anything. We had no idea what Shiloh was going to look like or be, and she had to sing her entire performance, act her entire performance 2 months before ever showing up on set.
And she's locked in,
There's literally, you're locked in at that point. There's no ad-libbing line. If like Bill or Ogre was like, it'd be great if we tried this. We can't because you're lip syncing back to your own lyrics.
So you gotta try to think of everything beforehand, every scenario.
Yes. We'll do 3 more questions right here.
For the writers and conceptual designers, where did this come from? Like, where did your inspiration and the ideas come from?
Do you want to, the ideas for this
The whole project.
yeah, the whole project, well, basically, we were doing a bunch of 10-minute operas. And basically, Terrance had this great idea about the grave robber and this guy who could see the underbelly of you're asking specifically about Repo, right? Yeah. And so, this thing about the grave. Yeah, you're talking about Hairspray, right? And basically, I had this idea of doing something in the future where people could buy organs on credit, and if you didn't pay up, we all know what happens. So Terrance and we melded our stories together and made this 10-minute opera called The Necromerchant's Death. And people were digging it. They were loving it. And we liked it, and we were just thinking, like, how can we really take this into a full-length show and expanding on the characters that we were doing up on stage? Obviously, you have a lot to weigh in on that as well.
Just briefly, the visual stylings. I mean, my background's in illustration,
you know, it's morphed over the years, the look a bit, but I think there's always been a central kind of basic aesthetic that we've stuck with, and it's kind of this. For me, it's like a mixture of old and new. You know, things like, you notice there's a lot of Victorian elements in the movie. Yeah. And to me, that's kind of the opera part, the old. And then futurism, the kind of flashy, that's the industrial element, which I think is, so, but like specifically the comic books in here, we had a very short amount of time. I was drawing like, I was in a fucking sweatshop.
Would that be a Cambodian sweatshop?
We very quickly wanted to come up with a look, and there wasn't really a time to kind of stylize it. We had like a style team that, okay, this is what we're going with. So what I was adamant on is that it should have an old, flat look, and that basically no Photoshop airbrushing, none of these kind of modern, I think, crappy looking. Yeah. I wanted to have like very flat colors with lots of graphic blacks. And then, of course, looking at what David Hackle and Joe White, who's here tonight, our cinematographer.
Joe White?
Joe White! Hey, there he is!